Well, I think basically it was my mindset was one of the biggest limiting factors for my life. It's what was the picture that I was painting in my mind about my future and how I was basically using excuses from the past, um, you know, about all the people whose fault it could have been to, my dad's fault or that he didn't encourage me or, that I failed at things. And so we start to just form this really negative picture about ourselves. And so for me, I think that was very limiting because all I could think about is my past and how that was like trying to set me up for what I'd be worth in my future. And so that was really something that I needed to dig into and pull apart. And I just got to a point where I had a realization that, you know, I'm the only one holding myself back. And so that type of thinking is a choice. I could choose to be a victim or I can choose to be victorious. It's all about the perspective. And I had a choice on the perspective.
He was born into fame as the son of iconic artist Pro Hart, but behind the spotlight, Mr. David Hart felt invisible. He felt trapped by self-doubt and past pain, but one decision changed everything, which means he rewrote his story, he built a legacy brand, and David Hart now equips others to break free and dream big. And we're here to talk about it on Pat Mesiti's best-selling author podcast, where authors become change makers and stories ignite transformation. It's David Hart, internationally acclaimed artist, entrepreneur, and he's the author of the powerful new chapter, From Unstuck to Unstoppable. It's in Pat Mesiti's book, The Turning Point. And we're here today to talk about getting past those emotional blocks, those barriers, getting unstuck in business, creativity, and life. Stop believing those old stories and drive towards some new, exciting adventures. So, Mr. David, glad to see you. Glad to be speaking with you.
Hey, Robert, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Very happy to have you. And what did we leave out of that introduction? What are you all about? What's your focus and passion?
Well, it was a pretty good introduction. I was actually very impressed with that. I'd like to meet this
Nice.
guy. Yeah, no, look, definitely my passion is optimizing myself for life, to live my best life. And, things I learn along the way, I love to share. So I think one of my key attributes is helping people. I love encouraging people and I love seeing people win and live their best life and go from strength to strength. So that sort of thing gets me ignited, gets me passionate.
Very nice. And what a profound and worthwhile goal, right? You never hear someone saying, hey, my goal in life is to discourage people. I want people to give up. Like, we don't want that, right? We want to be a positive force of change in the world. And so I looked you up and I saw that you're the son of this guy, Pro Hart. And I can only imagine that if someone is famous and accomplished, then you have to kind of grow up in someone's shadow, right? Nothing you do is good enough until it is, right? And so, as far as this man, your father, Pro Hart, how famous is he? Because I'm not in Australia. Is he a household name? Would he be recognized? Just what is his level of celebrity, or what was it?
He's very well known. If you were to ask most people, that would be, I would say, people over 30 years old. My dad's been passed away for almost 20 years now, but he's still a household name. Most people over 30 years old, if you said to them, have you heard of Pro Hart? They would go, oh yeah. And their cliche phrase is, oh, Mr. Hart. He is a very famous Australian artist, a visual artist. And back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, he did a series of carpet commercials for DuPont Stainmaster, created all these paintings on carpet and used cannons and exploded things. And it was all done with food and then it was all cleaned off and the carpet was fantastic. And the lady comes in and says, oh, Mr. Hart. It's in the top 25 ads that people remember. So that really took him from the art world into everyday people's lounge rooms. So yeah, he's very well known.
Very cool. What a cool backstory to come from. And even Wikipedia says he's considered the father of the Australian outback painting movement, and his works are widely admired for capturing the true spirit of the outback. So that was your dad. And what was it
Yep.
like growing up around that? What did you have to deal with?
Well, I think from an art perspective, it was amazing because I was very heavily immersed in art culture back in, like, the 60s and 70s. If you were an artist, you were a celebrity. People didn't have Netflix. Going out to the movies was an event, but going to an art exhibition and meeting an artist and then meeting the who's who of people that would attend. So, it was amazing growing up in that sort of environment. He was always getting interviewed. He was on lots of documentaries. There was always film crews at our house. And being a celebrity, we lived in the outback in a place called Broken Hill. Anyone that came to that city to visit, if it didn't matter who they were, if they were actors, there's a lot of films that are made there, like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Like they make hundreds of films out in Broken Hill. All the actors would come to our place to meet Dad. So we grew up in a very, what would you say? Like it was always filled with something happening. But as far as arts culture, I was very heavily immersed in that. So Dad never forced art on us, but he like created opportunity for us to learn art. So if he was like sculpting, he'd say, "Oh, here's some bits and pieces, put them together if you want. Here's the welder." Or he would, if we were doing clay or painting or whatever, he would let you have a go and let you discover art for yourself. So from that perspective, I couldn't have got a better upbringing in the arts. But there were other sides of it as well. Like you say, time wise, he wasn't the perfect dad. Like I absolutely honor my dad, and really, dads are just people like us, just trying to get things right. But they don't always. It doesn't always happen that way. A lot of people kind of think Dave Hart, born with paintbrush in one hand and dreams in the other hand, and the world's your oyster. But it wasn't. It wasn't exactly like that. My dad was not good at mentoring. Um, you know, seeing things when I got things wrong, it was like quite intense and quite crushing. They weren't used as moments of teaching and maybe for a best example, I wasn't able to fail forward, if you know what I mean. So they were just real times of crushing. But when you understand him, his dad was from the outback. He ran a shearing station where they would shear sheep. Very rough culture. His dad was not affectionate, didn't model fatherhood or mentor him. So I guess he knew only what he knew, and yeah, and so that had ongoing effects for me, confidence wise and identity wise. Especially when your dad's famous, you're always under that shadow of like, am I just Pro Hart's son, or do I have a purpose? Like, what am I doing on this planet? Um, and with little confidence, um, doesn't help you to shape a great identity of yourself.
Right. Those are some deep thoughts, right? You think about what you pass on to the next generation and what's passed on to you, and then what was passed on to them. And it's just this whole unbroken chain of many thousands of years of all this family stuff. And many times it's like just a lot of anger and mean behavior. But then you realize, okay, well, as I was growing up, my parents were also growing up in an adult way, and they try to navigate this real narrow corridor, right? Of saying, well, you want to set up these opportunities for your kid and you want them to go their own way, but then sometimes the anger or the impatience or the perfectionism, sometimes just emotions in general, right, it overtakes what you could and should have done as a parent. And we want the best for our parents, right? We want the best for our family. And so it seems,
Absolutely.
however, that you turned out okay, right? You're here now, you've accomplished many things. And what has that led to? Like, you've written this chapter, and what's your personal story all about?
Well, my personal story, why this story is personal for me, it's because it's quite vulnerable, like I'm telling people about, some pretty tender parts of my life. But I think also, um, it's about how to get unstuck, like where I was stuck. And for me, it was a lot of self-limiting thinking about myself and about my future. And so, it's a little bit of this chapter just talks about, because some people don't know why they're stuck, and it took me a little while to figure that out. But I explain that, and then the steps of like how to how to basically get unstuck from your current position, because it's easy to just stay where you are. So yeah.
You get nestled in that comfort zone, and that doesn't sound exciting, right? There's no risk, there's no achieving, there's no new things, but it's also low stress, and it's a path of maybe blaming others or limiting yourself, but it's also a lot of sameness. And so you say that there are specific ways, right, where you were limited. So how could you describe or unpack that? What was the problem?
Well, I think basically it was my mindset was one of the biggest limiting factors for my life. It's what was the picture that I was painting in my mind about my future, and how I was basically using excuses from the past, um, you know, about all the people whose fault it could have been, to my dad's fault, or that he didn't encourage me, or that I failed at things. And so we start to just form this really negative picture about ourselves. And so for me, I think that was very limiting, because all I could think about is my past, and how that was like trying to set me up for what I'd be worth in my future. And so that was really something that I needed to dig into and pull apart. And I just got to a point where I had a realization that, you know, I'm the only one holding myself back. And so that type of thinking is a choice. I could choose to be a victim, or I can choose to be victorious. It's all about the perspective. And I had a choice on the perspective. And just realizing that my past and people in my past, things that they did to me, things that didn't happen, the opportunities that I didn't get, failures, they don't have to frame your future. And that's really the mindset that I had to get myself out of. And once I did that, I was able to just put some things in place that really started to help drive me forward. Because there's probably not a lot of time to explain it all here, but from my trajectory as a teenager going into adulthood, I was probably headed for jail. I was hanging out with the wrong people, getting involved with the wrong things, and you can just fill your life up with excuses as to why you're where you are. But your life is a sum of every decision that you have made, every decision and perspective that you've decided to settle with. Because once you settle with something, anything you're settling with, or deciding that, that's the level I'm at, that's what you're choosing to be. That's what you're choosing for the rest of your life. And so I had to just get myself to a place where I could step over that and put some things in place that could really turn me the other direction.
Ooh, well, that's powerful. And you said a lot of good stuff here, right? That you have more choices and more power than you think you do. You just have to change your thinking and stop using those past excuses and maybe fix up the guilt by association, right? Because if you're around the criminals or the people that are also so negative, then you fit right in, right? And if anything, if you
Yep.
try to move beyond that, then they'll pull you right back down. So we need to have a better group of friends, a better support system. And how did you go about doing that? Like when it comes from, I know you said we're limited on time, but as far as something that's doable or something that's a first step, like how does somebody go from that pit of despair or whatever metaphor, right? Merry-go-round, hamster wheel,
Yep.
stuck in the sameness. How do you change that from positivity and calculated risk taking and achieving some new profound heights?
Well, I think there's Well, there's quite a few keys, and I've put them all in the chapter. But just to share like a few practically that anyone listening to this can just decide to like put into action from today if they wanted to. Um, I think, first of all, feeling stuck, like, because some people, life's okay, they haven't had a bad background, but they're just not optimal. They're not kind of maybe where they want to be. And for some people, it's similar to my story. You know, they've got things that have held them back and that they're holding on to. But in general, I think feeling stuck is related to purpose generally. And if you don't have one, you need to get one. And if you do have one, you need to revisit it because purpose is a big driver and behind everything that you do, like your work and your passions, they're all going to be fueled by your purpose. And the other thing is like, building your life with intention. You have to be intentional about the life that you want to live. The first thing that I had to do is I had to build some immovable convictions about my life. And these are really just beliefs about, my purpose and my future. Like I had to really sit down and think like, what's my purpose? What's on my life that I'm here to do? And then put that into motion with some purpose that's bigger than just myself. And I think that's a real key is building vision beyond just you. It's like, how can I actually make other people inclusive of this and take others on the journey with me, live a bigger vision than just for what I need to do. And I think those immovable convictions about those mindsets, about seeing your past as like a trap or a prison. But it's actually like your downs are actually your ups if you want them to be. Things that you think are maybe not so great or things that have happened can actually be, there's so much teachable wisdom in that you can spin around to help other people. And technically, you're an expert in it because you've lived it. So,
Right.
and I think the other thing is what you feed your mind. I had to just start feeding my mind. So, like your life is only going to rise to the degree of your thinking. So, if your thinking's down in the gutter, if your thinking's like, I'm not going to go anywhere, I've got no purpose, can't see anything for my future. Well, you're not going to go too far with that. Like I said, your life's the sum of every decision you've made to this point, but you can turn it around by improving your thinking and making better decisions more consistently. That's what the key is. And like you said, like your friends, you got to find people who are where you want to be in life. I had to actually just completely change friendship groups in my early 20s and put myself around people that were going to help build my character, build me in wisdom, help take me to the next level. And because they've already been down the road you want to go, they've made the mistakes, they've got all the wisdom there for you to learn from. Get yourself a mentor. I still have a mentor. He's in his 80s, and I just get so enthused and pumped up every time I get to spend time with him and have a coffee. Get a mentor in your life. And the other thing is like stop making excuses. Like excuses are self-limiting beliefs that are just dressed in logic. You
Mhm.
could probably explain your way through them, but in the end, they're just excuses. And the other thing is to take action because that's the bridge between intention and achievement. And so, once you start to lock some of that stuff together, then you start to get some momentum towards where you want to head.
This is great advice. You think about there's for sure a large group of people who haven't achieved their full potential that are stuck in the mud that don't do things properly, and you think, what do? They probably make excuses, hang out with the wrong people, don't have real goals. And then you have that very small group that we want to be in, and what do? They have a mentor, they work on their goals, they have that purpose, they have that intention, they take action. And I'm really curious,
Yeah.
and I love that word purpose, right? Because like that's for some reason appearing in my life lately, right? When I come to someone and I say, I've created all this work for myself, right? I've got all these appointments, all these things to do, and I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to find myself adrift. And it's like, hey, well, you need to have a purpose, right? You need to connect it to your
Yep.
purpose, and then that will solve not all the problems, but a lot of them, and especially the ones about procrastination, becoming discouraged, becoming disillusioned, you say, hey, what's my purpose? And especially, as you say, one that is bigger than you, that involves others. And so, but I'm really curious about what that looks like. And so if someone asked you, Mr. David Hart, what's your purpose? How would you explain it?
Oh, very easily. My purpose and my vision is to build a platform to help other people and to use my gift to help other people. So I can paint, I can write books. Um, there's stuff that I can do that can really help people and really encourage people and see people go forward. So for me, having a platform is not to launch me to be something great. A platform is where you can reach down and help someone else up. And so uh, that is quite simply in a nutshell what gets me behind my easel every day. Like you said, like we can be busy, life can be busy, and that'll be great for a while, but you will eventually get to a point in your life where you'll say, what's the purpose of this? Because, hard work over time needs to have a purpose. Like otherwise you're just on a big wheel. And so for me, we and my wife, we sell art for a living, but we also give a lot away. And when I say give it away, we get behind charities. We look for opportunities to be generous. So if we get a call from the Motor Neuron Foundation or Cancer Council or anyone, like big charities, gala auctions, and they say, "Hey, we're raising money," we just get behind it. We just look for opportunities to be generous. So we use our platform, we use our gift and our brand because people pay a lot of money for what we create, and we just give it in and sow it into things. And we sow into people. We give away a lot of different products and merchandise and all sorts of things. I'm always just looking for opportunities to sow into people. That's really what gets me passionate.
That's very nice. That's very great because it would be so tempting to either make excuses, right, and say, "Oh, we're so busy, we can't do that." It would be tempting to be selfish and say, "Oh, what's in it for me? How do I benefit?" And you're almost getting into the seven deadly sins at that point, right? You're getting into all the things you're not supposed to do, but instead you say, "Hey, what's the opportunity?" And even though we do have a lot going on, and even though we might start to feel tired, life is short, and we need to impact people, we need to help people, and that is in many different ways, right? In making
Yeah.
a difference, and also in setting a good example for others and for a family, and saying, if this other opportunity comes along to help others, well, we're gonna go and embrace it, and we're not too good for it, and we want to be that positive driver in the world. And so you've got so much going on, and I love how you're all about creating things, right? You do the painting, you get behind the easel, you do the writing, you make things that will outlast you and will help others and have the ripple effect in many unexpected ways. And so we've been jumping around all different kinds of topics, David, but I want to make sure that before we end our conversation, we get to what's really important to you. So in this conversation we're having, is there a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
Um. Oh, I think. I think it's. I think it's really. For uh, for people. Well, probably what I could say is like, what is a question that I could ask other people? And it's really a question that I've had to ask myself. And that is like, what's what's the picture that we've got in our mind about our future? That's something that I always love to encourage people with, because a lot of people haven't painted a picture of where they want to go. They're not dreaming about what it is that they actually want to do. They're kind of just stuck in the things that they're doing in life. But if we don't know where it is that we want to be, how do we build vision to actually arrive or at that point or achieve it? So, I that's a question that I love to ask people, and asking them like, if I gave you a blank canvas right now, what's the picture that you would paint of where you want to be, where you want to go with your life, what it is, what's the perfect scenario that you'd like to create with your life? And that's a big challenge that probably a lot of us haven't really thought through.
Right. but we need to do it. And it's very fundamental, right? Because you figure, well, if you write down those future plans, those goals, those dreams, then now you know what direction to be pointed in, and you know what to say yes to and what to say no to. And let's say you don't do this exercise. What will you just randomly luck into all these things that you should have versus knowing if you're on the right track or knowing to be proud of reaching your goal? And it's just a matter of like, if you don't know what your target is, you won't hit it. Am I right? And so
Yeah,
as far
yeah.
as people knowing about you and knowing about this art and your company and your book chapter and some next steps, where should someone go if someone says, I've been bitten by the David Hart bug, I want to get unstuck in business, creativity, and life, I want some next steps, where should someone go?
Well, they could go to our website, which is just www.davidhart.com.au, and that you can definitely see all of my art, all of the different experiences that we create, and products and books and all sorts of things. Yeah, and depending whether you want to just build some vision or you're looking to actually actually build into creativity into your thinking around your vision. That we've got books and resources that people can come and visit and get hold of, and I'm sure it'll really uh, help people and moving forward and just planning out the life that they want to live.
Very cool. And we all need help with that, right? No one's too good for it. We should be pursuing these greater opportunities and learning from the best, which was Mr. David Hart, and he's at davidhart.com.au. You can click through and see his artwork. You can read about him. You can just check out what he's got going on. And what do you have happening locally? I know that you do lots of like local events in Australia, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have art. We have an art gallery on the Gold Coast in Queensland. That keeps me very busy painting for that gallery. But we're always like doing events, like I said, helping out charity gala events. And we're always creating things like books and um, sculptures and artworks. Like we're always very busy with what we're doing here at the studio. I have a studio separate to the gallery, and then we're also just launching a whole nother platform for art auctions in Australia. We're always doing something.
Well, very cool. And you can just find that whole hub of what he's doing at David Hart, that's HART.com.au. He's the son of the legendary late great Pro Hart, and his chapter in The Turning Point with Pat Mesiti is called From Stuck to Unstoppable. And you can and you should read that if you've been finding yourself in doubt, if you need to discover your why, need to figure out this purpose, act with intention, take action, get a mentor, and all these other very valuable, important lessons that we've discussed, which you might have heard here and there in pieces, but there's a reason why you hear it again and again, because it's so important. But so many people, they learn, they hear, but they don't act. Well, now is the time to change that by checking out that chapter From Stuck to Unstoppable in the book, The Turning Point with Pat Mesiti, but also davidhart.com.au. You can subscribe to David's newsletter. You can find out about those local events, and you can just check out just some inspiration, right? Some creative works and brighten your day. And so, as far as leaving us with something lasting here, Mr. David, as far as giving us something to chew on and think about, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to put you on the spot. I try to stump you by asking about a fun quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
My favorite quote is that you are the architect of your life. So, in other words, you get to design the life that you want to live. And where you are right now is not the end. You've still got time, no matter how old you are. You can change directions, and you get to color it in. So that would be my encouragement from here.
Very nice. I love the artsy metaphor, right? You can paint that picture. You still have time. It's not too late. Stop making excuses. Go ahead and do it right now by going to davidhart.com.au. We've been speaking with Mr. David Hart, who just is an inspiring figure. He's helped people hopefully he's helped you, given you some advice. And so don't squander it, take action. And thank you very much, Mr. David, for showing up, stopping by, and just being raw, authentic, sharing with us your trials and tribulations. I really appreciate what you brought to us.
Thanks, Robert. It was an absolute privilege.